are you holding up, man?
We're, level 4 of stir crazy.
Yeah.
You?
I don't know how many levels are that. Is that 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 10?
Uh, 5.
Yeah, I'm on
And
level.
he,
I'm on level 3. But you have younger children. How old are your kids? So you've
uh,
one son, right?
yeah, my youngest son is 6.
Yeah,
So it's homeschooling here.
yeah. I mean, being at home with a 6-year-old is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's he doing?
He's okay. I think um, he's missing school. Who would
Yeah.
have thunk?
My daughter, who's 16, said the same thing to me. She actually
Yeah.
said, one thing is I'll appreciate school more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really real thing. All of us are starting to appreciate the little things in life, you know. Like I saw somebody on Twitter say, I'd give a gajillion dollars to have a Bud Light in an awful bar with a bunch of people I hate. And it's like,
That's perfect.
yeah, that's how we're all feeling. But
It's been tough in our neighborhood. We have neighbors that are really good friends, and it seems like every few days we'll all wind up in our front yards because the weather's beautiful, and people start getting a little closer and a
yeah,
little closer. And my wife and I have just been like, "Back up,"
yeah,
sorry, but you know, I
yeah.
don't know. What do you do?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, unfortunately, I think things are going to get maybe a little, as things get worse until they get better. Maybe
Yeah,
it will be easier to do that. But,
yeah,
well, one thing that's happened all of a sudden that's given people some joy is you guys released a really cool video of Midnight Rider. Uh,
yeah. We went down to Capricorn. This was a couple of months ago
right,
when it was still safe to do so.
right. And just so
Uh,
some people don't know, let me just make sure everyone knows. So Capricorn is, where Allman Brothers and Marshall Tucker and so many great records were recorded. And that studio was sort of in disrepair and it was
yeah,
refurbished. And you were one of the first. Were you the very first people to record in there? I know you were
I don't
one of
know
the
if we were.
first.
I think we were the first full band session.
Okay.
I think if I understand correctly, there were some acoustic sessions and things
Okay.
like that.
All
But
right. I'm sorry. I didn't
um,
mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure
oh
people
no, bro.
understood what we were talking about. So, uh,
Yeah.
so tell us about
Um,
that.
I don't know if you've been down there,
I have not
but
been
it's
there since it was refurbished. I've been there when it was crumbling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did a really good job. The folks at Mercer University and other people. I'm not exactly sure who. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I don't know. But anyway, uh, the studio is now functional. The tracking room and the control room, and there's a little museum dedicated to all that great music that was recorded there.
And
Um,
did it feel special being in the room? Did it have that feeling like people get when they recorded Sun or when you set foot in Motown? For those of us who've been lucky enough to do that, did it have any of that kind of vibe?
Absolutely, in spades. We got down there early. We just spent a day there, um, and we went in about 10 a.m. and started to set up and make a little racket. And Chuck LaBelle came by just to say hello and good luck, I guess. But
Yeah.
as I spoke with him, I was just kind of speaking of feeling the vibe. I was looking at Chuck and thinking, well, you helped build this house,
Brothers and sisters,
exactly.
laid back.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
if we just stopped there, that would be enough. If you were just in a room,
yeah,
and obviously there was
yeah,
a lot more than that, but those two albums alone are
yeah.
landmarks.
Well, to explain, what we were doing, we had talked about it with some of the guys down there as they were getting everything ready, and we thought, well, that would be cool just to go down and record a few covers of songs that not necessarily were recorded in that room, but that were recorded for Capricorn, the label, or just songs with strong ties to Macon, Georgia. So we recorded Midnight Rider first. Did a also did Revival. Jimmy Hall came down and we did Keep on Smiling and Grits Ain't Groceries. And
Amazing.
then I had fallen in love with this really obscure Little Richard song a few years ago that I heard on AM radio here in Atlanta one day, and I pulled over and was like, "What? I know that's Little Richard singing, but what is this?" You know. And thanks to the internet, I did a little digging and found it. It was on
And
a
what?
song called Southern Child, and it was never released back in the early '70s when he recorded it.
Amazing.
But
And who listens to music on AM radio anymore? See, which
well,
you got
yeah,
paid off for that strange quirk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was a station here in Atlanta, 1690 AM, that played the greatest mixture of music I've ever experienced, and they went under unfortunately. But boy, I enjoyed it when it
Yeah.
was
Oh, that's really
back
cool.
there.
And then you played at least on the Midnight Rider, you're playing the Dwayne's Gold Top, which
Yeah,
Dwayne Allman's 1957 Les Paul Gold Top,
yeah,
which thanks to the kindness of the owner, who current owner, I'm not even sure who it is, and the Big House Museum where it mostly resides, and Richard Brent, who runs the Big House, our friend.
yeah.
Many people have played it, which is awesome because how many of these classic guitars are not played? Most of them. Um,
Yeah.
so tell me about. I know you've played the guitar many times before, but what's it like when you play it? Is it just simply great because it's a great guitar, or does it have? Do you feel some Dwayne mojo when you're holding it, playing it?
I mean, I feel the mojo. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being romantic, but definitely feels like there's a little bit of a spirit in it.
Right.
I'll tell you this: was the first time I played it was at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, and a fellow named Chris Knight was playing the show with us. Great singer songwriter from Kentucky, and we were sound checking, and I was playing that guitar, and his guitar player walked up to me right after we finished the song and said, "Man, that gold top sounds fantastic." He didn't know what it was.
Right.
He said that gold top sounds really special. What pickups are in it? And those actually aren't the pickups that
Right, because
that
when
were in
Dwayne
it. But
traded it, that was
yeah,
part of the deal. Was he wanted
yeah.
his old pickups? They swapped pickups. Yeah.
Those are actually they are PAFs. They're 59 Birdland pickups. But anyway, funny thing, I had to say, well, these are actually real PAFs, and this is Dwayne Allman's 57 Gold Top. And
Yeah.
his jaw kind of hit the floor for a second as a
Yeah.
guitar player, And he said something like, "Well, no wonder." Anyway, that was just
Yeah.
as
So
a matter of fact.
yeah. So the Midnight Rider video is out now. Everybody can go watch it. I have posted it. I'll post it again just so if anyone missed it for the first time. But when is the rest of the Capricorn Session EP going to be released?
I believe it's June 17th.
Okay.
This was sort of a last minute, or not last minute, but very spontaneous decision to release that stuff. We did it. Initially, it was just to advertise the tour, the summer tour with Allman Betts and the Wild Feathers. And then it turned out really well. We were happy. It's live. No
Yeah.
overdubs. It's just us and warts and all. And but then we thought, well, this might be a way that we can. One thing that's on everybody's mind is musicians and especially their crew or crews, plural, around the world that are out of work. Obviously, tons of people in all lines of work are out of work, but we're really thinking about our brothers and sisters in the industry who can't make a dollar,
Right.
And so the people at Music Cares are really doing a bang up job of helping getting these people
Yeah.
some
That's great.
some help.
Yeah, and I would urge everyone listening, if you're watching this, you're probably a big music fan.
Yeah.
Do what you can. If it's only $1, give $1 to Music Cares, COVID Fund. Sweet Relief has a music fund.
Yeah.
Devin Allman is doing these great weekly concerts, and all the money he's raising, he's given to the Allman Betts crew, which I think is great
Yeah.
for this exact reason you just talked about.
Yeah.
And everyone should know, most bands still have their merch available.
Yeah.
When you go see a band on the road, buy their merch. A lot of times that's the difference between a good night and not for a band. A lot of people don't understand that. And
Yeah.
right now, it's all there is for many people. So just a reminder to everyone to support that. So Charlie, you grew up in Alabama, and your dad was a bluegrass guitar player, right?
Yeah,
Was he professional, or was it more of a hobby for him?
it was a hobby,
Mm.
but he was dedicated. When I was about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, um, thinking back on it now, I know that he had a deep love and respect for roots music because when he would come home from work, after working an 8 or 10 hour day, the first thing he would do is pick up that guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it honest.
And did you love that music, or did you reject it because it was like the old man's music?
I loved it, and I wanted to. I remember I was really intrigued by a song called "The Wreck of the Old '97." It's a train song, uh, one of the best, And I wanted to be able to play and sing it. And he was a good teacher, and he taught me the cowboy chords. But then when I was about 11 years old, and I started making, what would become my best friends at that time, none of them were interested in that music. They all liked Led Zeppelin. So
Right. And
I had a choice to make.
yeah. Well, eventually you brought those two musics back together in a way. But so is that why you started playing with your guitar solo? Was it Jimmy Page?
Yeah, yeah, it had to be. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing some of the British invasion bands with the guitars way up here.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that doesn't look that cool.
Yeah, but Page is, it's incredible, and you can do it. You can pull it off. We talked about this before, but you have such a great guitar collection. It's like there's some guys. It's just fun. An added part of the show, if you're a guitar guy, is watching what comes out. Tom Petty and Mike Campbell for me were really like that. It's really like going to a guitar museum.
Yeah.
Warren is kind of like that. He doesn't switch guitars that much, but everything that comes out is a beauty. And you're definitely like that. So if you had to go down to one guitar, one amp, what would it be? If you had to, you're doing a tour. You had to drive in a Toyota with three guys, and everybody could only bring one thing.
Well, I have a favorite. It's an old refinished 1956 Gibson Les Paul Jr. I've had it since right out of high school, 1992, and then a 1958 Tweed Fender Deluxe. That would be the only amp you need.
Yeah. So, how important for you were the Allman Brothers and the rest of the Capricorn bands, but in your development? Were they sort of like a third thing you got into? You had your bluegrass roots when you were a kid and first getting into play music. Then you got into Zeppelin and that world. When did the Allman Brothers and that end of things come to be part of your musical heritage, or your personal musical heritage? I mean,
well, I think it was right from the jump, because being from the southeastern United States, I actually heard more of those bands, meaning the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and the Charlie Daniels Band and Marshall Tucker. I heard more of that than I did Led Zeppelin, especially on the radio.
mm-hmm.
At that time, the radio was inundated with local radio stations, especially Rock 103 in Columbus, Georgia. If they weren't playing one of those band songs every 15 minutes, that was the format,
Right.
But that was only hits, of course. And I had a friend when I was about 11 years old, and his dad, I think, could see that I was really getting into guitar and getting into music, and maybe he could see that I was a searcher, and so he gave me the Fillmore East record. And I had a turntable, my dad's turntable. And, the first thing we hear is that slide lick that was heard around the world. I get goosebumps thinking about that.
Yeah.
That was so powerful. But he also gave me Graham Parsons' Grievous Angel, that record. He gave me Fire and Water, Free, tons of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for it now. It's just,
was he just really a huge, fan and music lover, and he saw in you a kindred spirit and wanted to help you expand your palette?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can't figure it. He wasn't getting paid to do it.
Yeah,
I think that he wanted to. I would do that now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
that's
I
really
saw.
cool. And those three
Uh,
records you mentioned would be a pretty good start to like putting together what Blackberry Smoke sounds like in a way.
yeah,
You know, I know you just mentioned those off the top of your head, sort of, but really, they all seem like really essential albums to the what you guys do and what you have done.
yeah. He actually told me, when he was explaining to me about Graham Parsons, and he said, "Now I want you to know that Graham Parsons is the person who taught the Rolling Stones how to play country
Right,
songs." And he actually got it a little confused. He said, "And actually, it's him playing all those really great guitar parts on those records, and not Keith
right.
Richards."
Well, that's not quite true, but
Not quite.
but yeah, his
Yeah.
impact is indelible. Have you read the book by Stanley Booth, another great Georgian, The True Adventures of the Rolling Stones?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a great book, and Graham's role in there I think really comes through, and Stanley obviously really related to Graham because they were both from that same neck of the woods of Georgia.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the Spirit of the South tour, which like every other tour this summer, we hope comes to fruition because we need it badly. So
Yeah.
you mentioned it's Wild Feathers, Allman Brothers Band, and Blackberry Smoke, and then the way you're ending the show sounds pretty special. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So the plan is to have each band, play a set uh, officially, and then the final set of the night, the fourth set, will be a full um, a full jam set, and which is something that we've never had the freedom to do. Um, and Dwayne and Devin and I had spoken before about how when we play shows together, we all wind up on stage for the encore for a song or two.
Right.
But now we can bring everybody up and celebrate what those bands celebrated, the freedom to just let it go. And Jaimoe's going to be there. And we hope uh, a lot of other special guests from city to city. We talked about Jack Pearson and Jimmy Hall and maybe Jimmy Herring and a few other JD Simo.
Yeah, but Jaimoe's actually going to be on the tour.
Yeah, he's on the whole shebang.
Yeah, which is awesome. Which,
Yes.
Aside from the great music that the fans will get to hear, you'll also get a chance to spend a lot of time with Jaimoe, which is always a treat.
Yeah.
I've been going for the last since 2014 or so when One Way Out came out. Whenever I go to 1E or the Peach Festival, I'm always just on Team Jaimoe. So I miss a fair amount of music just to hang out with Jaimoe, but it's
Exactly.
always worth it. Every time I come home from hanging out with Jaimoe, I tell my wife something or other he told me, and she's completely charmed by him. And he by her. First and last thing Jaimoe says to me every time I talk to him is, "How's Rebecca?" and tell her I said hi.
Yeah.
And he's like that, and I'm sure if he meets your wife one time, he'll be the same way with you if he's not already, because he's a gentleman, and also he likes the ladies, and I'm sure I know your wife is lovely in all regards, so I'm sure he'll take to her right away.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before about how much you like to jam with Warren, and I mentioned, like you did that tour, was it last year or 2 years ago now, with Tedeschi Trucks Band when you were on the Wheels of Soul tour? Was that last summer? Yeah. So, and you would sit in with them regularly, and it's always so great. And I think you do a great job of both welcoming guests and being a guest.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course you're welcome. But is it an art to that? And Warren is like of our generation, right? He's like the king of that. I mean, Warren can take anything that seems like it would be chaos and have it be great,
Yeah.
And so, how do you view that in yourself, and what do you take from that from Warren? What would you say about Warren's ability to do that?
I mean, he's an incredible person. Obviously, an incredible musician, but he's so gracious and he is a true Renaissance man in every sense of the word. unselfish. What could I say?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, does that graciousness extend musically in the sense of wanting anyone who's a guest on his stage to sound good? In other words,
yeah, I mean,
you're not just if you come up and play with Warren, you're not just going to stand there and play some chords or be over. You know, he doesn't bring people up
right.
so he can look good.
Yeah, he's always, um, he goes out of his way to make sure you're comfortable. Um, and of all, that tour that the Smoke and Mule tour that we went on with Mule, that was 2 or 3 years ago. Um, we did encores together every night and never repeated a song for the entire tour. I think we wound up doing like 35 different songs, and uh, that's an honor for me. And one night this is funny to me. We were at the Peach Fest, and it was the year that Greg wasn't able to come and headline. And so Mule played an extra set.
Right.
And Warren said, "Would you like to come and play some brother songs? And we'll do this, as a tribute to Greg." And I said, "Of course, I'd be honored, And so we played, and it was just, for me, from where I stood, it felt pretty magical.
You played with Warren at the Peach Fest the year that Greg was supposed to headline and had to pull out, and so you guys you participated in sort of a tribute to Greg, right? So tell me about that experience.
Yeah, Greg was going to be the headliner that night, and so, but instead, since he was too ill, to play that year, Warren and Mule played another set. They stayed and headlined that night, and so Warren came, and we were on earlier, and he came and asked if I would like to join them and play a set of brother songs, and of course I was over the moon about that, and so we did, and the love and the solidarity with all the people, because obviously everybody understood, right. And there were, it was packed, and the people were so happy and sad at the same time. It was very bittersweet, but man, I don't know, for some reason those songs were even more beautiful that night. And when we were done, we walked off, and I looked at Warren and said, "I figure you've probably played those songs more than 1,000 times, but I haven't, and I thought that was pretty special. Thank you for having me." And he grinned and said, "Man, that was right. Good."
And you also did, of course, the whole tour, the Wheels of Soul tour last summer with Tedeschi Trucks Band, and yeah. I think pretty much every night you sat in with them as well, right?
Yeah. And again, just it's so, sitting in or having people sit in can be kind of tricky at any time, because you're taking someone out of their comfort zone, or you're being brought out of your comfort zone. But it's never like that with Derek and Susan or with Warren. They just make you feel right at home.
Anybody watching Warren and any of his bands can see right away that he's the band leader and he's running it. With Derek, it's a little more subtle if you're not a musician, maybe, and you're not paying attention. But when as a guest on stage, does it feel just as much like are you looking to Derek for, band leadership and guidance? Is that like a clear delineation, or is it more democratic? Or Susan also, I guess, if she's singing, maybe is leading the charge as well.
Yeah, I guess a little of both. You don't want to start playing start soloing while she's singing. But Derek, he is a very generous band leader as well. He always gives you the look,
Yeah.
Or you go.
And he's pretty clear with his messaging to you, right? There's no miscommunication.
He is. And of course, playing guitar with him is like playing a game of catch with Tom Brady. So.
Right, but some people might feel intimidated or something. But I mean, I obviously you're at a level where you shouldn't, but it's also partly because of the generosity of both those guys, where that's not what it's all about anyhow, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's about seeing what kind of vibe you can create together.
Right.
And playing with TTB is a lot different because it's such a big band.
Right.
And you never really know how loud horns are till you're standing in front of them.
Right. Because it's not like you can turn down the stage volume.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's fantastic. I mean, they're really conscious of that. The whole band, they're so aware of each other. And I think I heard Derek talk about that a lot, about how they, one of the biggest parts of having a big band is listening, right, and staying in your lane, and making music together. It's all weaving.
Right. So some people might know, but I think a lot of people don't know, if they're not the most hardcore of Blackberry Smoke fans, that Britt is sort of the guy who was sort of the guy who does all this merch. He may have done this brother shirt I'm wearing. We're not, but I know he does a lot of the. You guys, your company does a lot of the Allman Brothers and Big House merch.
Yeah.
This is also a Big House shirt. So tell me a little bit about Britt and how he assumed that role in the band. Did that happen naturally with Blackberry Smoke?
It did from the beginning. He's always been the most business-minded member of the band. But from the beginning of Blackberry Smoke, well, previous to Blackberry Smoke forming, he was a graphic designer. So that was his passion. He had a company in Atlanta. And so from the beginning of our band, that was the way we made gas money, was, because we were playing for $150 bucks a night and all the beer we could drink. And then he's like, well, to get us from city to city, we're going to have to sell some T-shirts. And but he loves it, and he's so good at it. So many bands over the years have come to him and say, how do you do this?
Right.
And he's so Merch Mountain, that's his baby, his company, and they do a fantastic job.
Aside from just the business aspect of making money, there's also the business aspect, as we were talking about before, of getting the band from point A to point B. That's sort of a business-minded thing. And I mentioned Chris Layton always played that role with Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble. And there's something about drummers having that like straight ahead, logical perspective, right?
Yeah, he was, in Britt's case, he was definitely the adult from day one. When we were all out chasing our tails, he was the guy that got us to the next town on time and intact.
The designated driver, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, all of the above. He was, I think that when the rest of us finally settled down from our wild ways, he was definitely relieved. So somebody else could drive for a change.
Right. Well, Charlie, thanks for your time. It's been great. It's a great way to have nice informal chats, to keep us busy. And I think there's some people out there who will enjoy it. And, also for those of you if you're watching this, you don't know, Charlie has a great Instagram feed where he's been posting some really great music clips. We didn't talk about that, but I've been really enjoying those myself. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Is that the guitar behind you that you've been playing?
That's one of them. That's an old late 40s Gibson.
Yeah.
Pawn shop guitar.
And at times like this, I guess you're really happy that you can play acoustic guitar really nicely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm home now with wife and baby, and a Les Paul through a Marshall won't quite cut it.
Right. It's not quite the same alone anyhow. It's like in addition to being a great lead guitar player, you're a songsmith and a singer, and it's really handy. So thanks for doing that. If you want to do any more music, I'll help you get the word out. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, Charlie, be well, and be well to your family.
You too, and take care there.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
See you, friend.
In song and story, the South has been praised for generations.
I'm gonna give it that countryside life, place where I can say that right.
Hey, we are
Blackberry Smoke,
and we're bringing a summer's worth of rock and roll boogie to you. Each band will play a full set of their own. The Blackberry Smoke will play a full show, and then the encore set will be a huge jam with everyone, where we plan to celebrate Southern rock and roll music as long as it can go.
Coming down on me from a Florida boy, yes, up in Nashville, Tennessee.
Band
bands that influenced Blackberry Smoke, or me personally, would be Leonard Skinner,
Charlie Daniels Band,
Allman Brothers, and Marshall Tucker Band.
Maui Hatchet,
Wet Willie.
Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Southern rock and roll bands, they were all taken to blues and early rock and roll and jazz and country music and all kind of jumbling it all up into one formula.
Call up Trudy on the telephone.
Those bands that created all that music, a lot of those songs are songs that we grew up playing, and people don't want to let go of something like that, you know. It's part of who they are.
And they won't let me out of this jail if she asks you how I'm faring.
It's going to be a great day of music with the Wild Feathers, the Allman Brothers Band, and Blackberry Smoke, followed by an all-star jam set with Jaimoe and many other guests to be announced.
Don't blow it. Go to blackberrysmoke.com for all the information that you need.